Hello, and welcome to Niche Snacks. Today, we're going to be talking about a new deck brew that I've been cooking up. It is going to be a Queen Marchesa deck. I have a proxy of it. I don't have a real one, and I didn't feel like getting one. Queen Marchesa is a 3/3 human assassin for a red, a white, and a black. She has Death Touch and Haste. When she enters the battlefield, you become the Monarch. And at the beginning of your upkeep, if an opponent is the Monarch, you make a 1/1 black assassin creature token with Death Touch and Haste. I wanted to do something a little unconventional with this deck. So I had an idea a while ago about building a non-blue counterspell deck. And I wanted my commander to be something that gave me some sort of card advantage, which isn't always easy to find in non-blue colors. Queen Marchesa was my choice because she gives us the Monarch, so she'll give us an extra card draw at the end of the turn. Another unconventional thing that I wanted to build this deck with is I wanted to drop the number of ramp spells and see how that plays out. I had a friend the other day that was telling me about some other way to brew commander decks where you drop the number of ramp spells and you put in more card draw and action spells. So I want to try that, and I think Mardu is a pretty good color combination to make that happen. Let's get into the ramp first really quick, because it is very small. I think we're just going to run an Arcane Signet and a Soul Ring, and if we get those early on, they'll help us get Queen Marchesa out on turn 3 instead of turn 4, which will be good. Get us that extra card draw. And then for a little bit more ramp, we've got a Sword of Feast and Famine, which will untap our lands when we connect with it, and a land tax, which is also a proxy because I don't have a real land tax either. Those are kind of expensive. Land tax is a 1 white enchantment. During your upkeep, if an opponent controls more lands than you can search your library and remove up to 3 land cards and then put them into your hand and reshuffle your library. So that'll get us, basically, it'll let us draw 3 extra cards a turn that are all lands, which isn't a bad thing at all, really. And then Sword of Feast and Famine, it's a 3-drop equipment artifact. The equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has protection from black and green. And whenever the equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, that player discards a card, and we untap all of our lands. So some late game, if we need extra mana for something, to pump out a couple extra spells and then draw some more cards. There's that. We'll go over the land base really quick too, because it's pretty basic. We just got mountains, swamps, plains, 5 of each, and then some lands that make colored mana, and some proxies, and some more stuff. Yep. So nothing really interesting in the lands or the ramp. So let's get to the more interesting stuff. Here's what I pulled out for some counter spells that are not blue. First up, we've got a Mana Tithe. It counters target spell unless its controller pays 1 mana. It can catch someone with their pants down if they tap out for a next spell. That's where I found Mana Tithe to be the best. You can really get someone with it. Frontline Medic, I don't think we'll really use to counter a spell. It's a 3/3 human cleric for 2 and a white. It has Battalion, so when it attacks and at least 2 other creatures attack, creatures we control get indestructible until end of turn, so it'll let us swing in for free with Queen Marchesa, something like that. Especially if somebody took Monarch from us, it'll let us swing in and get it back pretty reliably because it gives all of our creatures indestructible, so we're not going to lose anything on that trade. Also got a Lapse of Certainty, which will counter a spell and then put it back on top of its owner's library instead of into their graveyard, so it'll give us a turn off from whatever they're doing. I pulled out a red Elemental Blast, which will counter a blue spell or destroy a blue permanent. I also pulled out a Tybalt's Trickery. It's a 1 and a red, and it counters target spell. Then you choose 1, 2, or 3 at random, and its controller mills that many cards, then exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile a non-land card, and they can cast that without paying its mana cost. Put the exiled cards in the bottom of their library in a random order. So it's just a counter spell. It'll replace it with something else. It could be something nastier, so we got to be a little bit careful with how we use Tybalt's Trickery. We can also Tybalt's Trickery our own stuff and try to get something else that's better. We don't have any top deck manipulation or anything like that I pulled out, so Tybalt's Trickery isn't really geared towards countering our own spells. I also have a Withering Boon. It's 1 and a black. As an additional cost to cast a spell, we have to pay 3 life, and it counters a creature spell. Illumination is a 2 white. Counter target artifact or enchantment spell, and that spell's caster gains an amount of life equal to the spell's casting cost. Rebuff the Wicked, counter a spell that targets a permanent we control. Dawn Charm does a couple things. It's 1 and a white, and we have 3 modes. We can either prevent all combat damage that will be dealt this turn, regenerate target creature, or counter target spell that targets us. Artifact Blast, one of my favorite finds. Did not know this card existed at all. It's 1 red, counter an artifact spell. And lastly, for our non-blue counters that I have pulled out is a Dash Hopes. You counter a spell unless any player pays 5 life. And then some other things that are kind of counter spell-esque, but not actually counter spells. We've got a Deflecting Swat. So if we control a commander, we can cast a spell without paying its mana cost, and then we choose new targets for target spell or ability. So it'll let us redirect a counter spell that's countering one of our things. We can redirect it to Deflecting Swat. Deflecting Swat resolves, and then the counter spell that it redirected to itself has no target, so that one fizzles, which effectively counters it. It'll also save us from some single target removal and stuff like that. Or if somebody has a, target player draws X cards, we can Deflecting Swat that to ourselves and draw more cards and steal their card draw, which is pretty rude, but also hilarious. And kind of same thing with Imp's Mischief. It's 1 and a black, change the target of target spell with a single target. You lose life equal to that spell's converted mana cost. That one's not so great for stealing X spells that draw cards, but it can also, save us from a single target removal spell or something like that. So because we have such little ramp, and I don't plan on putting any more in, we need to replace that with something. I upped the land count to 37, so it's a little bit higher than what I would normally put in a deck like this if I had a bunch of ramp spells. So we had to replace some of the ramp with a couple more lands, and then I wanted to replace the rest of it with just draw spells. So every turn we should have something to do, whether it's draw cards or put permanents into play, something like that. Sometimes they're even both, right? Cards like Gonti, Lord of Luxury. This is 2/3 for 2 and 2 black. It's an Aetherborn Rogue. He has Death Touch. And when he enters the battlefield, you look at the top 4 cards of target opponent's library, exile one of them face down, put the rest on the bottom of that library in a random order, and for as long as that card remains exiled, you can look at it and you can cast it, and you can spend mana or mana of any color to cast it, or any type even, so you can cast colorless spells with it too. So it's not technically card draw, but it is card advantage. It gets us another spell for free, not for free, but it gets us another spell, and it steals something from an opponent, which is nice, and they don't know what it is. So it could be any sort of action spell or anything like that. Or it could be a dud. Nobody really knows except for us. I've also pulled out an Outpost Siege. It's 3 and a red for an enchantment. When it enters, you choose cons or dragons. Dragons, probably would never pick for this deck. Really, it's in here for the cons. So at the beginning of your upkeep, you exile the top card of your library, and until end of turn, you may play that spell. So it's essentially a free card draw every turn. It does exile it for us, and it only gives us 1 turn to use that spell. Pretty common in, red draw spells. And it says play that card too, notably. So if we exile a land, we can play that land, instead of one out of our hand, and then keep extra cards in our hands so our opponents don't know if we are holding lands or action spells. Along the same lines, Urbrask Heretic Praetor. He's a 4/4 for 3 and 2 red with haste. And at the beginning of your upkeep, you exile the top card of your library. You can play that card this turn. And at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, the next time they would draw a card this turn, instead they exile the top card of their library, and they may play it this turn. So on our upkeep, this will exile a card, and then we still get to draw a card on our draw step too. So it's 2 cards that we get for our opponents. If they don't have any extra card draw or anything like that on the beginning of their turn, the 1 card that they would draw for the turn just gets exiled. And they can play it if they want to, and if not, then it's just stuck in exile, and they don't get it. Lizolda, the Blood Witch. It's a 3/1 for 1, a red and a black. You can pay 2 and sacrifice a creature. And Lizolda, the Blood Witch, deals 2 damage to target creature or player if the sacrificed creature was red, and we draw a card if the sacrificed creature was black. So just a way to sack creatures off. Notably, the tokens that Queen Marchesa makes are black, so we could sacrifice them to gain card draw that way. Lizolda is kind of probably not going to make the deck, but it's there. Actually, we're just going to cut that right now. I don't think Lizolda is very good. Not for what we're trying to do. We're not building aristocrats or anything like that, so sacrificing the creature isn't a huge benefit for us. We've got Brass's Tunnel Grinder, legendary artifact for 2 and a red. And when it enters the battlefield, you discard any number of cards and then draw that many cards +1. At the beginning of our end step, if we've descended this turn, you put a boar counter on it. And if there's 3 or more boar counters on it, you remove them and it flips. And it flips into a land that'll tap for red. And whenever you cast a permanent spell using the mana provided by this land, we discover X, where X is the spell's mana value. Really, it's in there for the discard and draw part of it. If we have a bunch of extra lands in our hand from land tax, we can turn those into other card draw. We don't have any way to reliably descend on our own, because again, we're not an aristocrat deck or anything like that. Agus of the Wheel. It's a 3/3 for 2 and a red, and you can pay 1 and a red, tap it, and sacrifice it, and each player discards their hand and draws 7 cards. It's just a wheel effect. Wheel effect on a creature, and we've got most, if not all, of the black sacrifice a thing, draw 2 cards. In Village Rites, Deadly Dispute, Fanatical Offering, all of those have an additional cost to sacrifice a creature. Deadly Dispute and Fanatical Offering can also have you sacrifice an artifact instead of a creature, and then you draw 2 cards, and then with Deadly Dispute you create a treasure token, and with Fanatical Offering you create a map token. And if you don't know what a map token does, don't worry, they're pretty useless. We've also got a Phyrexian Arena, which at the beginning of our upkeep, we'll draw a card and lose a life. Pretty solid card in any black deck. Should probably almost always have a Phyrexian Arena. Extra card draw is really good. And then for some red draw spells, we've got Laughing Mad and Electric Revelation, which do the exact same thing. They are both instants for 2 and a red. As an additional cost to cast the spell, you discard a card, draw 2 cards, and then they both have flashback for 3 and a red. Thrilling Discovery, so red and a white. You can gain 2 life, and then you may discard 2 cards, and if you do, you draw 3 cards. Mangara the Diplomat, it's a 2/4 with 3 and a white. It's a human cleric with lifelink. Whenever an opponent attacks with creatures, if 2 or more of those creatures are attacking you and or a planeswalker you control, you draw a card. And whenever an opponent casts their second spell each turn, you draw a card. It's the whenever an opponent casts their second spell a turn, you draw a card. That's going to get us lots of card draw. That's potentially 3 extra card draws per turn, and most people are not going to hold back on casting extra spells just because we get to draw an extra card. For some more wheel effects, I've got a Reforge the Soul, which is 3 and a red. Each player discards their hand, draws 7, and it has a miracle cost of 1 and a red. So if it's the first card we draw this turn, we can cast it for the miracle cost. And there's also a Wheel of Fortune, which is 2 and a red sorcery. Each player discards their hand and draws 7 cards. I also don't have a Wheel of Fortune. They are very expensive. So there's a proxy. This deck's going to have a lot of proxies in it, but I think that's okay. Also pulled out a Thrill of Possibility. It's a 1 and a red instant. As an additional cost to cast the spell, you discard a card, and we draw 2 cards. I have a Jessica's Will, which is one of the ones where we can choose both modes if we control a commander. It's a 2 and a red sorcery. We can either add a red mana for each card in target opponent's hand, or exile the top 3 cards of our library, and we can play them this turn. And we can do both if we control our commander, which we do want to get Queen Marchesa out and get us that Monarch. We've also got a Sword of Fire and Ice. It's an equipment for 3, equips for 2. The equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has protection from red and blue. And whenever the equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, with the Sword of Fire and Ice will deal 2 damage to target creature or player, and we draw a card. And I pulled out another proxy, the One Ring. It's a 4-drop legendary artifact. It's indestructible. When it enters the battlefield, if we cast it, we gain protection from everything until our next turn. At the beginning of our upkeep, we lose life for each burden counter on the One Ring, and we can tap it to put a burden counter on the One Ring and then draw a card for each burden counter on the One Ring. Just more reliable card draw. And also, it's proxy. The card's very expensive. I don't have $60 or $80 or whatever the fuck it costs. And then lastly, for our card draw stuff, I've pulled out a couple black draw spells, which are all along the same lines of losing 2 life and drawing 2 cards. First, we've got Read the Bones, which is a scry 2, draw 2, lose 2 for 2 and a black. We've got Sign in Blood, which is a double black, target player draws 2 cards and loses 2 life. A Nice Whisper, which is 1 and a black, you draw 2 cards and you lose 2 life. And Decode Transmissions, which came out of Edge of Eternities. Card's awesome. I picked up a bunch of these for most of my black decks. It's 2 and a black, it's a sorcery, we draw 2 cards and lose 2 life. Pretty normal, but it also has a Void ability. If a non-land permanent left the battlefield this turn or a spell was warped this turn, instead you draw 2 cards and each opponent loses 2 life. So we'll get the 2 cards and everybody else will lose 2 life. Pretty spicy. And because we're running so much card draw, I thought an Hammerit's Archive would be pretty good in this deck. It's a 5-drop legendary artifact. If you gain life this turn, you gain twice as much life instead. Whatever, we're not really gaining life. But if you would draw a card, except the first one you draw on each of your draw steps, you draw 2 cards instead. So all of these cards that let us draw 2 cards are going to let us draw 4 cards, which is really good. Especially like Thrill of Possibility is a 2 mana, draw 2. Yeah, we have to discard 1 card, but then we get to draw 4 cards. Pretty spicy. Now we've got some removal spells. I pulled out a Waltz of Rage because I think it'll work really well with Queen Marchesa. It is 3 and 2 red for a sorcery. Target creature we control deals damage equal to its power to each other creature until end of turn. Whenever a creature we control dies, we exile the top part of our library, and we can play it until the end of turn. Till the end of our next turn, sorry. Why that works really well with Queen Marchesa is it makes the creature deal the damage, and Queen Marchesa has Death Touch. So if she deals any damage to any creature, it'll be destroyed. It won't get an indestructible creature, but who cares? A regular sweeper's not going to get that anyway. And it also pseudo draws us cards. It impulse draws us cards for each creature we control that died. There's a Bonfire of the Damned, which will deal X damage to target player and each creature he or she controls. It costs a double X in red, but it also has a miracle cost of X in a red, so we can get more damage out that way. And I also grabbed a Ruinous Ultimatum, which is 2 red, 3 white, and 2 black. It's a sorcery and destroy all non-land permanents your opponents control. So a little bit later game, if our opponents are pulling ahead of us and we need to get back in there, it's an asymmetrical board wipe that'll just blow up all of our opponents' non-land permanents and leaves everything we have intact. So everything we built up stays and everything they have goes away. For single target removal, I pulled out a Rip Apart. It's a sorcery for a red and a white. And we can choose one. It either deals 3 damage to target creature or planeswalker, or we destroy target artifact or enchantment. So it's got a lot of versatility. It can potentially kill off a creature if we need it to, or blow up a problem artifact or enchantment. The only thing that keeps me from running this in every red-white deck I've ever made is the fact that it's a sorcery. But I think this deck is a little bit slow and it needs a little bit more versatility in its removal because we're going to be using those counter spells that are very, very niche. So anything that hits play that we aren't able to counter, we want to be able to take care of it some other way if it's a problem. Next, we've got a Chaos Warp, which is 2 and a red. The owner of target permanent shuffles it into their library and reveals cards from the top of their library. If it's a permanent, they put it onto the battlefield. So again, Silver Bullet. Any permanent that's on the battlefield that we have an issue with, Chaos Warp deals with it, even lands. And that's kind of hard to find in most removal spells. Got an Anguished Unmaking. It says 1, a white, and a black for an instant. Exile target non-land permanent. You lose 3 life. So any non-land permanent we have a problem with that we weren't able to counter or deal with in some other way, Anguished Unmaking will take care of it for us. Kind of same thing with Inevitable Defeat. It's an instant for 1, a red, white, and black. This spell can't be countered, and you exile target non-land permanent. Its controller loses 3 life, and you gain 3 life. So 1 more mana, and we gain the 3 life instead of losing the 3 life, which is pretty nice. And along the same lines, we've got an Utter End. Exile target non-land permanent for 2, a white, and a black. Pretty Silver Bullet removal spells. That's what we want. Crackling Doom will deal 2 damage to each opponent, and each opponent sacrifices a creature with the greatest power among creatures he or she controls. This one's really great to fire off if your opponents only have 1 creature in play, then it feels like a board wipe, and it's an asymmetrical one because it only happens to our opponents, and we don't have to sacrifice anything or take any damage, which is pretty nice. Rakdos Charm is another one that comes into handy quite a bit. It's a red and a black for an instant. We can choose one of 3 modes. The first one is exile all cards from target player's graveyard, which is really great if your opponent's trying to reanimate something. And at instant speed, you can remove their graveyard from play, and they have no valid targets anymore. It can also destroy target artifact, which is great because artifacts are always a problem. And the bottom mode is each creature deals 1 damage to its controller, which is also really great if your opponents are trying to go wide with a bunch of tokens or whatever, and they make 50 tokens. And you're like, actually, all those tokens are going to deal 1 damage to you, plus all the other creatures you got in play. It can do a lot of different things. It's a little niche in what it does, but what it does is great when it's great. And it's usually pretty great. How great is that? Wear and Tear is another really good removal spell. It's a fuse card. So one side, Wear, is an instant, destroy target artifact for 1 and a red. And Tear is 1 white and destroy target enchantment, and you can fuse them together by paying both the casting costs and getting both, so we can destroy target artifact and destroy target enchantment. Yeah, I really like Ink Shield. I want to make it work. Prevents all combat damage that would be dealt to you this turn, and for each 1 damage that's prevented this way, you make a 2/1 white and black Inkling creature token with flying. It does cost 5 mana though, which is a lot to hold up. But if we're late in the game and don't have anything else to do necessarily, see, that's the thing, is I think we are going to have something to do. We want to have something to do. So if we hold up 5 mana, our opponents are going to probably realize that there's something coming. If they've played this against this deck more than 2 or 3 times, they'll know that we have some bullshit and will probably avoid attacking us. Maybe, I don't know. I'll keep it in just in case. I do like Ink Shield. I think it's a really good way to turn an Alpha Strike into fucking Uno reverse card. Some other removal spells that might include a Swords to Plowshares and a Path to Exile, which just straight up exiles a creature. We all know what those do, I hope. And then also Stroke of Midnight, to destroy a target non-land permanent, and its controller makes a 1/1 white human creature token. So it's kind of like a Beast Within, but better and worse in some ways. I'm pretty sure Beast Within can hit lands and this can't, but it makes a 1/1 instead of a 3/3. So it's less bullshit for us to deal with later on down the line. Next up, we got a few reanimate spells. Obsidat's Aid is 3, a white and a black for a sorcery. Return target permanent card from your graveyard to the battlefield. So we can grab any permanent card that's put into our graveyard. Somebody blows up our Helmer's Archive or something and we want it to draw more cards, we can reanimate it that way. And then we've also got a Victimize, which is a sorcery for 2 and a black. We can choose 2 target creature cards in our graveyard and then sacrifice a creature. And if we do, return the chosen cards to the battlefield tapped. So we can kind of 2 for 1, especially if we make a token or something off the Queen Marchesa or another card in the deck. We can sacrifice off a token and get 2 better creatures back in play. And then I also grabbed an Iroas, God of Victory, 7/4 for 2 and a red and a white, has indestructible. And as long as our devotion to red and white is less than 7, it isn't a creature. Creatures we control have menace and prevent all damage that would be dealt to attacking creatures we control. So again, lets us swing in and get in without any repercussions of hurting our own creatures. And then eventually he'll become a 7/4 beater that's also indestructible, which is great. I've also grabbed a couple things that'll blink Queen Marchesa. So if someone does take the monarchy from us and we don't have enough creatures to get in and get it back, we can Cloud Shift Queen Marchesa and blink her. And when she enters the battlefield, we become the monarch. So we take the monarchy back from that person. Same thing with Restoration Angel and Feldar Guardian. All blink something when they come into play. Restoration Angel also has Flash, so it can get us out of a quick little bind. If somebody is using a single target removal spell to hit something, we can blink it, and when it comes back into play, it's technically a new creature. It's not the same one that they were targeting before, so it makes their removal spell fizzle. Originally, I was kind of thinking about making this a human tribal deck as well, but I just found so many other creatures that weren't humans that I wanted to play, like Restoration Angel. I think Clarion Conqueror is also a really cool card. It's a 3/3 flyer for 2 and a white, and it says activated abilities of artifacts, creatures, and planeswalkers can't be activated. Because we're running such little mana rocks, this will barely affect us. We don't have a lot of creatures with activated abilities either, and I have no planeswalkers in the deck, so it's almost an asymmetrical piece of stacks that isn't hardly ever going to affect us. I think the only creature in here with an activated ability is the one that wheels, the Magus of the Wheel. So I really don't see this affecting us too poorly, and it could screw over some of our opponents, especially with their ramp. Because artifact ramp is so prevalent in Commander, this guy will shut off all of their artifact ramp. I also pulled out an Ambitious Farmhand. It's a 1/1 for 1 and a white. When it enters the battlefield, you can search your library for basic planes, reveal it, put it to your hand, and then shuffle. So it guarantees us a land drop, which is nice. And it has Coven, so for 1 and 2 white, we can transform it, and only if we control 3 or more creatures with different powers. He's a 1/1, so we just need a 2 and a 3. And he flips over into a 3/3 with lifelink, which is not great, but it's something, and it guarantees us a land drop. So I thought it was kind of relevant for this deck that just wants to play 1 land a turn. The partner pairing of Trin, Champion of Freedom, and Sylvar, Devourer of the Free. Trin is a 3/3 for 3 and a white. And it partners with Sylvar, and at the beginning of your end step, if you attack this turn, you make a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. And then Sylvar is a 4/2 for 3, a black and a red. He has Menace, and you can sacrifice a human to put a +1/+1 counter on Sylvar, and he gains indestructible till end of turn. We are still going to have a lot of humans in this deck. I pulled out a bunch of humans, and there's some pretty cool humans that we can sacrifice off to Sylvar. Unfortunately, the tokens made by Queen Marchesa are not humans, they're just assassins, which kind of sucks, but it's fine. We'll have enough humans that if we need to save Sylvar, we can, or we can use them for some sort of aristocratic effect, but I don't really think that we will need to do that because we're not building for it. We also got a Rem Carolus. Yeah, we got a Rem Carolus Stewart Slayer. He's a 3/2 for 1, a red and a white. He has flying and haste, and if a spell would deal damage to you or another permanent you control, prevent that damage. And if a spell would deal damage to an opponent or a permanent an opponent controls, it deals double that damage. Or no, that damage plus 1. Actually, you know what? I don't even think we're gonna run this guy. He prevents non-combat damage dealt to us from a spell or another permanent. Oh, you control. So not even our opponents. Never mind. We're not gonna run that guy. He's neat. He's interesting. I would be interested in playing that guy in another deck, maybe, but not this one. Kelson the Plague. He's a 2/2 for a red, a white, and a black. He has vigilance and haste, and he gets +1/+1 for each experience counter we have, and we can tap him to deal 1 damage to target creature we don't control, and when that creature dies this turn, you gain the experience counter. So he just gets bigger and bigger. He has vigilance, so we can keep swinging in, and then if a creature's going to die under our opponent's control, for whatever reason, they block with it, and it's a guaranteed death or something like that, we can tap it and ping that creature, and when it dies, we get an experience counter, which will make him bigger. We can also use it to ping off their, 1-butt creatures and all that fun stuff too. So Kelson's pretty cool. He's also a human assassin, so he fits in with Queen Marchesa pretty well. Embereth Skyblazer. He's a 4/3 for 3 and a red, and as long as it's your turn, Embereth Skyblazer has flying. And when Embereth Skyblazer attacks, you can pay 2 and a red, and if you do, creatures you control get +X/+0 till end of turn, where X is the number of opponents you have. So that'll give our creatures a +3/+0 buff for 3 mana every turn, and he's got flying. That works pretty well with the rest of our deck because we're going to be swinging in. Frontier Warmonger's pretty neat. He's a 4/4 for 3 and a red, and whenever one or more creatures attack one of our opponents or a planeswalker they control, those creatures gain menace till end of turn. So it'll give all of our attacking creatures menace against our opponents, and then whenever our opponents attack each other instead of us, those creatures also gain menace. I definitely want to include a couple token producers. So I've got a Handwear Militia Captain. This is a 2/2 for 1 and a white. And at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 4 or more creatures, you transform it. And on its transform side, its power and toughness are equal to the number of creatures we control. And at the beginning of your end step, you make a 1/1 white and black human cleric creature token. Thraben Doomsayer is a 2/2 for 1 and double white, and you can tap it to make a 1/1 white human creature token. And it has Fateful Hour, which probably won't ever really get, but who knows. Which says, as long as you have 5 or less life, other creatures you control get +2/+2. So it could potentially buff up our board if we're able to stabilize at a low life total. Denethor Ruling Steward. It's a 2/4 for 1 of white and a black. At the beginning of your end step, if a creature died under your control this turn, you make a 1/1 white human soldier creature token, and then you can pay 2 to sacrifice another creature, and each opponent loses 1 life, and you gain 1 life. We might need to alter this a little bit and run stuff more based on aristocrat stuff. I didn't really think this was going to turn out that way, but I did pull out a lot of stuff that, benefits off sacrificing other things. So this might turn into an aristocrat style deck too. That might not be a bad idea. I don't know. We'll figure it out. I'm going to keep building this and we'll see. Dualcaster Mage is a 2/2 for 1 and double red. Has flash. When it enters battlefield, you copy target instant or sorcery spell, and you can choose new targets for the copy. Again, helps us get out of counter wars, or can double up on our removal or on our opponent's removal or our opponent's draw spells or something like that. Whatever we need it to do, it can do. Oh, this card's pretty cool too. Sage of the Skies. It's a 2/3 for 2 and a white. Human Monk. When you cast this spell, if you cast another spell this turn, you copy this spell, and it has flying and lifelink. So we could potentially, if we cast another spell before Sage of the Skies, which that's pretty much going to be what we always want to do with Sage of the Skies, is cast another spell before it, because it's going to make 2/2/3 flyers with lifelink. Baird, Steward of Argiv. It's a 2/4 for 2 and double white. Has vigilance, and creatures can't attack you or planeswalkers you control unless their controller pays 1 for each of those creatures. Any sort of like stack C or removal effect that we can put on top of one of our creatures is going to be really good for us. Speaking of which, we've got Firemane Avenger. It's also removal attached to a creature, which is pretty neat. It's a 3/3 for 2, a red and a white. Has flying and battalion. So whenever Firemane Avenger and at least 2 other creatures attack, Firemane Avenger deals 3 damage to target creature or player, and you gain 3 life. So it's a lightning helix on a stick. I've always really liked Firemane Avenger, but I've never really found a home for it. But I think this deck will be pretty good for the Firemane Avenger. Aurelia War Leader will also give us some extra combat steps. She's a 3/4 for 2 red and 2 white with flying, vigilance, and haste. And whenever she attacks for the first time each turn, you'll untap all creatures you control. And after this phase, there's an additional combat phase. So we can double swing in. And if we have something like Iroas, which will prevent all of our creatures from taking combat damage, we can really just swing for the fences. I also pulled out a Gisela, Blade of Gold Knight. She is a 5/5 for 4, a red, and double white. Has flying and first strike, and if a source would deal damage to an opponent or permanent an opponent controls, the source deals double that damage. And if a source would deal damage to us or a permanent we control, we prevent half of that damage rounded up. Gisela, if she sticks and stays around, is super oppressive for our opponents. They can't really afford to attack each other because when they attack each other, they take double damage. And when they attack us, they take half. So it's going to be a lot of them sitting back and waiting for us to attack and swing out with Gisela, which we will gladly do in this deck. I also grabbed an Avenging Hunt Bonder. It's a 3/3 for 3 and double white. It has double strike, and whenever it attacks, you put a double strike counter on another target attacking creature, which just makes our creatures fucking better. Ankle Shanker, I think, is going to be pretty good. He's a 2/2 for 2, a red, a white, and a black. He has haste, and when Ankle Shanker attacks, creatures you control gain first strike and death touch till end of turn, which makes them really hard to block and kill. So, and then also, Queen Marchesa already has death touch, but giving her first strike is also really good. Makes it a lot harder for people to block and kill our creatures, and it lets us, get in for more damage because it's unlikely that they're going to block. One creature that I pulled out that I think is going to be really good in this deck is Psychosis Crawler. Because we have so much card draw, Psychosis Crawler is going to deal a lot of freaking damage. 5-drop artifact creature, and his power and toughness are each equal to the number of cards in our hand, and whenever we draw a card, each opponent loses 1 life. So if we have an Elhammer's Archive out and we play a spell that lets us draw 2 cards and we draw 4 cards, Psychosis Crawler is going to deal 4 damage to each person. Well, make them lose 4 life. Exterminator Magmark, I think is how you say that. There's a 5/3 for 2 and a black and a red. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell that targets only a single non-land permanent an opponent controls, if another opponent controls 1 or more non-land permanents that spell could target, choose one of those permanents, copy that spell. The copy targets the chosen permanent. And you can also pay 1 and a black and regenerate them. But that's going to turn any of our, exile a non-land permanent spell into exile 2 non-land permanent spells, which, double 2 for 1 is amazing. It's great. It's free. It's awesome. So I think this card's going to get an auto include, especially with all of our removals looking the way it is. Perforating Artist, I think, is also a pretty good card for us. He's a 3/2 for 1, a black, and a red. He has Death Touch and Raid. So at the beginning of our end step, if we attack this turn, each opponent loses 3 life unless that player sacrifices a non-land permanent of their choice or discards a card. So he's either going to deal extra damage in the form of 3 life loss, or he's going to make our opponents get rid of a permanent of their choice or discard a card. So they're losing resources no matter what. And this guy doesn't have to attack for that raid trigger to happen. So we can attack with other things and not risk losing the Perforating Artist. Alesha, who smiles at death. I'm going to have to go through the deck and make sure that we have enough creatures with 2 power. But she's a 3/2 for 2 and a red. She has first strike, and when Alesha, who smiles at death, attacks, you can pay 2 hybrid white-black. And if you do, return target creature card with power 2 or less from your graveyard onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. I think there's enough stuff to make that work, but maybe not. I'm not 100% sure. So we're going to put Alesha in the maybe column up here. Bladewing Deathless Tyrant, I think, is also going to be pretty good. He's a 6/6 for 5, a black and a red. He has flying and haste. And whatever Bladewing Deathless Tyrant deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, for each creature card in your graveyard, you make a 2/2 black zombie knight creature token with menace. So just making more creatures. More creatures equals good for us. Let's try to build a fucking deck here. Frontier Warmonger and Goblin War Drums essentially do the same thing. Frontier Warmonger has that ability attached to a creature, which I think can let us drop Goblin War Drums, because if we ever have both of them out at the same time, they're going to feel pretty useless. Whatever the second one is that we drop, I like the idea of it being on a creature more, because that's kind of what we're aiming at, is just putting more creatures in play and attacking. So I think I'm going to cut the Goblin War Drums for that reason. Let's look at our removal. What do we got here? we might have too much removal because we have all these fucking counter spells too, which also count as removal spells. So let's go through our counter spells and see if there's anything we want to cut. I think Dash Hopes can go away. Any player can pay 5 life to counter Dash Hopes. So, I mean, for the most part, it's only going to be the person we played against, and essentially this card reads as 2 black mana, target player loses 5 life. It's not great, and I think we want to be sure that our counter spells are countering something. I think Artifact Blast is great. It's a 1 mana counter an artifact spell. Frontline Medic I wouldn't even really count as a counter spell. It can. It basically just makes it so our opponents don't cast any spells with X in their mana cost, or if they do, they leave up 3 mana, so we don't sacrifice the Frontline Medic and counter it, so it makes their X spells a little bit less. But it is still going in the deck for sure. That Battalion trigger, make it all of our creatures indestructible till end of turn, is really good. So we're going to keep that one in. Dawn Charm has a lot of different abilities that we can use. Preventing all the combat damage that will be dealt this turn is good. Regenerating a creature is good. And countering a spell that targets us is okay at best. But the other 2 modes are pretty useful. So I think Dawn Charm can stay in. Tybalt's Trickery hits anything, which is good. Red Elemental Blast only counters a blue spell or destroys a blue card in play. It might be a little too limited for casual. I'm not guaranteed that we're always going to have an opponent that has blue in the deck, but when there is somebody who's playing blue, this card's going to feel unstoppable. We'll leave it in for now. Withering Boon, I think, stays in no matter what. Countering a creature is pretty relevant, especially nowadays. Creatures are insanely good, so having a counterspell for that is great. Mana Tithe, I will always keep in. Lapse of Certainty, I think, might get cut. It counters any type of spell, which is nice, but it doesn't get rid of it. It just puts it on top of our opponent's library instead. I think we can get rid of that one. I like Illumination, mostly because I've never seen the card before, and I also paid like $7 for this Rebuff the Wicked, so I do kind of want to play it. I also want to play the Imp's Mischief and the Deflecting Swat. Both of them seem like they could be really good. Well, I mean, I know Deflecting Swat's amazing. The card's awesome. Imp's Mischief is a little iffy for me, honestly. I think we can cut the Imp's Mischief, actually. Okay, so that leaves us with 9 counter spells. Fuck, that's a lot. And then also put more removal on top of that, because we are going to need more removal. So we might want to cut back on some of these other counter spells, just because our removal with these spells in particular is going to be pretty limited. And once that spell's in play, or that permanent or whatever, these aren't going to help us in any way. So like Artifact Blast, probably be better off just having something that destroys an artifact, but countering an artifact for 1 less mana than what we would destroy an artifact for isn't, I mean, it's good, but it's a little more niche, I guess. Yeah, because we have to have it in hand when they're casting the spell. We can't draw it later and be like, oh, now we're going to get rid of that thing. Let's cut the Red Elemental Blast just because it's only a blue thing. We can probably cut Dawn Charm too. Yeah, let's cut it. See if we can cut. What am I thinking here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 counter spells. I'm kind of okay with that. 5, maybe 6 with the Tybalt's Trickery. And then let's look at some more removal spells. We want all of our removal to do everything for the most part, right? So I think Chaos Warp for sure, Anguished Unmaking for sure, Utter End, and Inevitable Defeat for sure, because those are going to get rid of problem permanents. Swords and Path also get rid of problem permanents. And then we've got, I think we can cut Bonfire of the Damned. Let's leave in Ruinous Ultimatum and Waltz of Rage. Both of those are good sweepers for us. I think we can cut Rip Apart, unfortunately. God, I really like that card, but our slots are just so fucking limited right now that I don't think we can run it. Kind of same thing with Wear and Tear, because we've got all of these exile of non-land permanent. These 4, I think we can cut Wear and Tear. Crackling Doom feels good most of the time, but I think right now our removal is just so limited. I think we can leave in, I mean, I don't know, I kind of want to cut Stroke of Midnight too. I think we just have all the stuff that does something a little bit better. with Utter End, Inevitable Defeat, Anguish of Making, and Chaos Warp. I want to try to leave an Ink Shield, and Rakdos Charm I know is great. I think we can probably cut Obsidian's Aid. It is a good card, but it costs 5 mana, and it's a sorcery, which kind of sucks. Let's look through our draw really quick too. There's a lot in here. I know I want to keep Elhammer's Archive, Outpost Siege, because it doesn't actually draw us a card. And the reason why I would cut that over the Urbrask is because the Urbrask is a creature. Attacking creatures is how we're going to win. Everything else, I think we can keep in. I want to have a lot of draw spells. A lot. Oh yeah, that was the reason I had those token creators, was for these guys. 22 different draw spells. That's a lot. Well, thinking of it this way, we're replacing all of our ramp for the most part, which is usually between 10 and 15 with draw spells and lands. I upped the land count probably like 2 to 4 more than I normally would for this deck. And then upping our draw spells to about 20 seems right. So, and then with the Elhammer's Archive, maybe that makes us not want to run Urbrask. We can get rid of Urbrask and let's get rid of Fanatical Offering. Fuck that card. Map tokens suck ass. So we've got, what, 37 lands. And then 20 here, so that's 57. And I do want to run these. So that's 61, 62 with our commander. So that leaves us 39 slots left. 15, and that's like half of it. We have 24 slots after that. 23, 22, 21, 20. So we're definitely going to run these guys. It leaves us with 20 slots. I think most of those should be creatures, honestly. So let's get rid of the 10th with Mayhem. It just doesn't do enough. Alesha, we can throw her up in the maybes, because right now I don't think we have any creatures she can get back except the Magus. Nope, the Magus is a 3/3. She can't even get that back. Okay. Yeah, let's ditch the Alesha, because I don't think she's going to get us enough stuff. I do really want to play the Ink Shield on the Rakdos Charm. I like the Conqueror. We're going to run both of these guys. I think for sure we want to run the Psychosis Crawler. I like this Exterminator Magarch. I think Victimize should be in there. Maybe we get rid of Kelson because he just doesn't do enough. Perforating Artist does a lot of work. I've seen it. I like Sage of the Skies because he makes 2 dudes. Dualcaster Mage is really good because he can double up our spells. Let's cut this too. Making 1 token a turn isn't enough. I'm not a huge fan of it. I like Baird because he's going to make people have to pay more mana to attack us, and they really have to decide. A lot of times too with stuff like Baird, people forget that it's out there and they'll tap out and pay a bunch of mana for something before their combat step, and then they'll try to attack us and then realize like, oh, you got to pay 1 mana for each creature attacking you, and then they're not able to attack us and they have to attack somebody else. Titan will make us dudes, which is good, which is all gold main. Can make our attackers huge. Imperial Recruiter I think isn't going to have enough targets, so we're going to get rid of it. Drop Denethor. Avenging Hunt Bonder is a 3/3 for 5 mana that has to attack, so we don't even get to use it until the next turn, and we're not ramping it out, so we're going to cut that too. 5 mana is a lot for a 3/3. Let's look at Sun Titan again really quick. How much stuff are we going to be able to reanimate with him? Only 2 creatures, 3, 4 creatures that we have set aside here. 5, yeah, there's not enough targets, I think, for Sun Titan to get stuff. He could get lands out of our graveyard, which we probably are going to have in there when we discard our hand. Or discard cards to draw more cards. So Sun Titan could get us those lands back, which is a form of ramp, but yeah, let's keep Sun Titan. Let's see how it goes. I think getting the lands back will be really good. Yeah, let's see where that puts us. We have to cut 6 cards. Let's try cutting a land and going down to 36 lands. Let's cut the land tax. Early game is decent. Late game it sucks. And we're going to be pushing the late game with this. We're not winning fast. I'm going to cut Cloud Shift. We have 2 other ways to bounce Queen Marchesa. We don't need the 3rd, I think. I was thinking Path and Swords, honestly, because we've got such great other removal stuff that hits anything. Having the extra path and swords might not be great. But maybe Rakdos Charm and Ink Shield would be more what we need to be doing. I do really like Rakdos Charm. Rakdos Charm can come out of nowhere and just fucking blow somebody out of the water. So yeah, screw it. Let's cut path and swords. I want to run Rakdos Charm and Ink Shield. Those are more answers for things. Cool. Sick. Here's our deck. Let's leave it up. Uh-oh. Shit. I did it wrong. I counted wrong. Damn it. Okay. Now we gotta cut one more card because I do need this plateau. Fuck. What do we cut? I guess actually I could go down on a land count. If we went down on a fetch, maybe the... Oh yeah, we do have a lot of fetches. We have the 3 Bloodstained Mire, Marsh Flats, Arid Mesa, and then I also put in a Prismatic Vista and a Fabled Passage. Let's get rid of the Prismatic Vista. We'll put in the Plateau. Go down to 35 lands. I don't know if that's right. We'll see. Let's see. So essentially we didn't replace any ramp with any lands. We just replaced all of it with draw spells and hopefully more action spells. No idea how this is going to play out. Well, I mean, I guess I did keep 2 ramp spells in, so 3 if you count the sword. Let's see. Do a couple goldfishies, see how that works. Pick 7. Wow. It's a hell of an opener with no lands. That's not good. Maybe we just didn't shuffle well enough. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. Yeah, that's a totally keepable hand. We've got 2 lands and a Soul Ring in our opener, which is pretty damn good. Yeah, we're gonna keep this. Yeah, we're missing white, but that's okay. We'll get there. Smoldering Marsh. So we're gonna play this Foreboding Ruins, and we'll reveal our bad land so it comes into play untapped. And we're gonna turn 1 Soul Ring like a fucking dirty degenerate. We'll draw another card. Let's play this Smoldering Marsh. Well, first, let's actually play this Laughing Mad. And an additional cost to cast it, we're going to discard a card. We're going to discard this Smoldering Marsh because we don't really need it right now. And we're going to draw 2 cards. Ooh. Oh my god, we hit our other ramp spell. That's hilarious. Okay, we're going to play this Badlands as our land for the turn and pass. Draw for a turn. It's a mountain. I think what we're going to want to do is sign in blood ourselves to lose 2 life and draw 2 cards. Hey, there's some lands. Then we're going to play this Marsh Flats, crack it, go get something that produces white, and then use the Soul Ring to cast our Arcane Signet. And then with this Marsh Flats, because we don't have anything to cast for 1, we're just going to get probably the snow-covered one that comes into play tapped. There it is. Snowfield Sinkhole. Go to our next turn. I'm gonna draw. We have a couple things we can do. We can play this Queen Marchesa and hold up mana for something else. What I was really thinking is we play the Psychosis Crawler and then next turn play the Brass's Tunnel Grinder and discard a bunch of cards and draw a bunch of cards to trigger the Psychosis Crawler, which seems like it'd be more fun. So let's do a Psychosis Crawler. We can play a land for the turn. Do we want to play a land this turn? Yeah, because we can hold it back next turn. So we'll just play this Plateau. And then we'll go to our next turn. Tap up, keep draw. Read the Bones, that's pretty spicy. Which we want to play the Read the Bones before the Brass's Tunnel Grinder. So let's play another land for turn because we want more mana. Always want more mana. And we're going to tap this guy for black and the Soul Ring to read the bones, to scry 2, draw 2, and lose 2. Ooh, it's not bad either. Man, I don't even know if I want to play that Tunnel Grinder anymore. I'm going to put the Gonti on the bottom, mainly because this is a goldfish, and having a Gonti is pretty hard to display a goldfish. And then we're going to draw 2 cards. Each opponent's going to lose 2 life. Oh my god. I kind of want to play this Sage of the Skies because it'll be our second spell for the turn, and it'll make 2 copies of it, which is pretty cool. And then that gives us 2 flyers to attach a Sword of Fire and Ice to. Or we could play the Queen Marchesa. Man, this is tough. We do have a lot of options. That's going to be a problem with this deck for sure, is we're going to have a lot of options on things that we can do. And if we also cast the Queen Marchesa, then we have a deflecting swat that we can use potentially. We're going to play the Sage of Skies, and then we're going to make a token copy of him. So we have 2 3/2 flyers. Our Psychosis Crawlers only have 4/4. 5/5, sorry. So that's something else we can do. Let's untap. Go to our next turn. Draw. We got another land. Our Psychosis Crawler will deal 1 to everybody. Now, here's the thing. We can play the Brass's Tunnel Grinder, and that essentially will wheel, but just for us. Depending on where our opponents are at, maybe our opponents have a lot of cool shit. Well, let's see. Maybe we can play the land. That'll give us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 mana. So we already have 8. We don't need the extra land if we're going to reforge the soul, the extra card in our hand. So let's play the land, and then we want to play Sword of Fire and Ice. And then I think we can reforge the soul, because we're not in a super great spot with what's in our hand for action. So let's reforge the soul, make everybody pitch their hands. And I guess this also really depends on our opponents, right? If our opponents are stocking up a good hand and it seems like they're, setting up for a big turn, reforge the soul and making them wheel would be really good. If they're kind of struggling and they're not hitting their land drops and they are, struggling to put things into play and stuff like that, using the Brass's Tunnel Grinder to wheel ourselves instead of everybody else is a better option. But for this, because it's a goldfish, we're going to reforge the soul. We're going to pitch our hand and draw 7 cards. Everybody's going to lose 7 life. And we already played our land for the turn. We can crank in here if we want to. Let's go to our next turn. Have a cute draw. Ooh. All right. So let's play this Swamp as our land for the turn. We can drop Agitator Ant to make things bigger and more problematic. And if we want to hold 4 mana up to flash back the Laughing Mad, we can. It gives us 3 more mana to play with. We could play the Phyrexian Arena, so let's do that, just to stuff more things into play. And then we will... Oh man, we could equip the Sword of Fire and Ice too. That was the other thing that I really wanted to do this turn. So maybe instead of playing the Agitator Ant, we'll hold that back. And we'll still play Phyrexian Arena, and then we'll use the 2 mana to equip the Sword of Fire and Ice, to the Sage of the Skies, and then we can crack in here, and they'll help, probably that one too. We'll draw another card, we'll shoot something for 2. We got 5 mana up. So we have a lot of options. We have a bunch of removal, not a bunch, sorry. We have the Chaos Warp that we can hold up. We have the Dual Caster Mage we can hold up for some interaction. If that interaction opportunity never presents itself, we can pay the 4 mana and flash back the Laughing Mad to pitch a card, which will be this Fabled Passage, and draw 2 more cards, and everybody loses 2 more life. Oh yeah, there's Nullhammer's Archive. That's going to be really good. Okay, let's go to our next turn. And my board is really cluttered right now. Sorry, this probably sucks to look at. We'll draw for the turn. It's a Sword of Feast and Famine, which is really good for us right now. Oh, and we need to draw an additional card for the Phyrexian Arena, so everybody loses 2 life. We need enough mana to play both the Alhamrad's Archive and the Sword of Feast and Famine and equip the Sword of Feast and Famine. So that's 3, 4, 5, and we have another 5 left over, so that's 10 mana. We have Xaxes. So 5 mana for the Alhamrad's Archive, 3 mana for the Sword of Feast and Famine, and then 2 to equip. And then we can go to combat, swing here. We're going to untap all of our lands. They discard a card. We are going to shoot something for 2 and draw 2 cards because of the Alhamrad's Archive. And everybody's going to lose 2 life. We drew 2 draw spells. Fuck yeah. And we just untapped all of our lands, which is even more disgusting. Did we play a land this turn? I don't think so. So if I played a land before, I would have played this Godless Shrine tapped and then untapped it with the Sword of Feast and Famine. So let's go with that. Say we did everything correctly. Or we could just put it into play now and take the 2 damage. I think what we do is still main phase 2. Let's play this Thrill of Possibility. And we're going to discard this land. We're going to draw 4 cards because of Alhamrad's Archive. Oh, gross. We got a Wheel of Fortune. So, do you want to play this One Ring first? How much mana do we got open? Oh, these don't untap. Sorry, that only untaps lands. So we have a little bit less mana to work with than I was thinking. My bad. We can play the One Ring with 2 left open. 2 mana left. Or we can hold the 6 and hold up like the Chaos Warp and stuff. We'll have to discard a couple cards, which is fine. We can also dump the Agitator Ant, which isn't a bad move here, considering we can give one of our creatures +2/+2. It'll be goated, but that's fine. So let's do that. We're going to go to our end step and discard. We'll discard 2 more cards. Let's get rid of you and this Alpine Meadows. We can dual caster Mage and copy something and retarget our opponent's thing. So let's say we did that, flash it in, then we have another creature in play, and then we untap, upkeep. Oh, we forgot to put 2 +1/+1 counters on something with the Agitator Ant. Let's put those on this guy, because we're definitely swinging with you. And then we'll go to our upkeep. We're going to draw 2 cards off the Phyrexian Arena and lose a life. And then we'll draw 1 card for our turn. We're going to play a land for the turn, which is this mountain. This is pretty much exactly what we wanted this deck to do. Just to play creatures and have draw spells and constantly be drawing. I knew Psychosis Crawler was going to be great if we could just start chaining draw spells together, and that's exactly what we did. And getting the Alhamrad's Archive out is, oh god, that was gross. Getting both of our the 2 ramp spells that we left in the deck out really quickly was also just insane, considering, you know, we built this deck to just hit lands every turn and keep going, keep going, keep going. I think it's going to be really hard for our opponents to deal with us. We're just going to be annoying as fuck. I don't know if we're always going to be a threat or even that much of a threat, but we're going to be there. I don't think this deck is going out first. It's going to be really hard for our opponents to deal with us. Oof, that hand sucks. We got no extra draw, only 2 lands and a bunch of 4 drops. I think we got to ship this. That is going to be the other thing with this deck. We can't really be afraid to mulligan. We don't have lands in our hand, in our opener. We really need to have them. Okay, that's keepable. This is going to be slow. I don't hate it, but it'll be slow. Depending on where we are in turn order, playing this shield or Shine Shadow Snarl and revealing our Alpine Meadow to keep it untapped. And then we have like a turn 1 Mana Tithe. If somebody tries to pop off turn 1 and like turn 1 Soul Ring, go, no, Mana Tithe it, get it out of here. And that'll kind of stifle their attempt at being crazy. Oh, we forgot to draw a card for our turn 2. Or for our turn 1, sorry. Do that. Draw a card for our turn 2. Okay, we can play this Foreboding Ruin and reveal the same Alpine Meadow. Have it come into play untapped. Doesn't really matter for us at this point because we just have 4 drops in our hand, but let's keep it untapped, keep our opponents guessing. Ooh, there's 3 drop. But again, we want to have our 4th mana up. So unfortunately, we're going to have to take 2 turns off, which kind of sucks. But it is what it is. Okay, turn 4. We'll play a mountain. Putting the 1 ring down as early as possible and getting those burden counters going on it is pretty important. But what that is going to do is put a big fat target on our head. So what I think I want to do first, actually, is play Queen Marchesa. And that's going to give us the Monarchy, and then we will draw a card on our end step. Should be a Grave Titan. If somebody attacks us, we'll give the Monarchy away. That's fine. I'm not worried about it right now. I'll take the damage, especially if it means keeping the Queen Marchesa around, because that'll make us a 1/1 with Death Touch. All right, so and then we'll draw for our turn, which is a mountain. So we are in a position where we're going to do 1 thing a turn. So that thing we do per turn needs to be good. We can Resto Angel to blink the Queen Marchesa to get the Monarchy back. If the person who took it or the person who has it currently is open, we could swing at them. We want to play our land, which would be this mountain. I think we want to play the 1 ring. And even if we don't have the Monarch, that's okay. We can let that stay out for another turn out of our control. Tap this, put a burden counter on it, and draw a card. It's a Blade Wing. Let's go to our next turn. Let's say we did not swing. I mean, if we could easily get in with this 1/1 and take the Monarchy back, we would for sure do that to draw an additional card. But let's assume that we couldn't. We're going to lose a life here, draw a card for our turn. I'm going to play a land for the turn. So we have 6 mana. Let's draw 2 before we do anything else. I always want to draw those cards to make sure we have everything open, all of our options. Oh, we got another dude here too. And then we can play the Grave Titan, which will use all of our mana. It's kind of what we're looking at right now because we do not have any sort of action spells. We're just looking at creatures, which is honestly kind of surprising considering we don't have a ton of creatures in the deck. There's like under 30. And again, if it's open to take the Monarchy, let's do that. Let's swing in with these 2 tokens, or maybe even the Queen Marchesa if we need to. And we'll take that Monarchy back. We'll draw a card at the end of our turn. We have 9 cards in our hand, so let's discard down a couple. Let's put some creatures in the graveyard right now because of Blade Wing in our hand. We'll untap. We're going to lose 2 life here. Let's say nobody took the Monarchy back from us because we have a Grave Titan and 2 zombie tokens, so they couldn't really get in. We can play the Sword of Fire and Ice and equip it to something and swing and draw a card and deal 2 damage, especially if we put it on like the Grave Titan, that's likely going to get in. Right, let's use our 1 ring to draw 3 cards. Ooh. Even spicier. If we play this untapped, that'll give us 5 mana and then 2 left over, so we could use the Thrilling Discovery to draw some more cards. So let's do that. Okay, so what we're gonna do is play a mountain, leave those 2, and we'll play 3 to play Sword of Feast and Famine, and then the 2 to equip to, let's say, Grave Titan, and then we'll use these 2 to Thrilling Discovery, so we'll gain 2 life, and we're going to discard 2 cards, which is going to be this Sulphurous Mine and Embereth Sky Blazer. No, let's do Dual Caster. Because we don't have any way to capitalize on Dual Caster ourselves, we're just kind of sitting with our thumb in our ass at this point and holding on to it. Gross. And then we can swing with the Grave Titan, make 2 more dudes, untap all of our lands. So now we have 4 zombies. So we could pop this Ruinous Ultimatum. We have the mana for it. No, we don't, because we have 3 mountains. Damn it. It costs 7 mana and only 2 of it's red. So yeah, we don't have enough mana for the right number of mana for the Ruinous Ultimatum, but we have 7, so we can do 2 things, which means that's kind of how I like to play. We want to use all of our mana as efficiently as possible, so we can play the Embereth and the Sword of Fire and Ice and have that up for next turn. And then we can go to our next turn, take 3 damage off the 1 ring, drew another land, which is a swamp, which was what we're going to play. Oh, we need to draw for the Monarchy as well. We now we have an Aurelia. Oh, that's even better with the swords. Holy smokes. But I kind of want the Blade Wing in play first before we put Aurelia down and get some extra combats. But next turn, we could use the Jazal and activate it on the same turn. So I think what we're going to do is play the Blade Wing, swing with some stuff, make a couple of dudes with the Blade Wing. We have 3 creatures in the graveyard, so we'll make 3 dudes. And then we'll untap our lands, play the Kazul in the hopes that somebody attacks us and we can make ogres. Maybe block them if we need to, but the more creatures we have in play right now, the better for Jazal. So the next turn, what we're going to do is untap, draw, play a land. We can drop Jazal, Goldmane, who costs 5 mana, and then, or 4 mana, sorry, and then we have 5 mana left over. And let's double check to make sure we have enough white mana. Oh, fuck, we don't. Shit. So, sorry. Instead of playing this swamp, we're going to play the Sacred Foundry because that gives us the 4th white mana we need. Because this playing it and activating it is going to cost 4 white mana. So we're going to play the Jazal and then swing in with everything because we have a bunch of creatures now. We should have even more of these. And then activate the Jazal and give all of our creatures +X till end of turn, where X is the number of attacking creatures we have, which is quite a bit. And my whole board has gotten to be pretty messy, so I think that's where we're going to call this Goldfish. But as you can see, the whole point of the deck is just to have game actions. Every turn we want to be taking game actions. We take no turns off. Maybe in the beginning of the game we had to take a couple turns off, which kind of sucked, but our game plan is to just constantly be making gameplay actions. We want to be doing something every single turn. And what also kind of sucks is I only drew 1 counter spell for both of those goldfishes, but that's where this deck originated, or the deck idea originated from, was playing non-blue counter spells. Well, anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. This is where we're going to call it. Please remember to rate, review, subscribe, give me all the thumbs ups and likes and everything. But the most important thing to me is that you show this to a friend. If you have somebody out there who you think would enjoy watching this video or listening to my stupid voice talk about Magic or anything like that, please send them the video, make them watch it, hold their eyeballs open, don't let them leave, lock them in a room until they watch it. Or don't do that, actually. I think that's kidnapping. That's probably illegal. But yeah, so don't do that part. But yeah. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Have a good rest of your day. Bye.